Hi, James.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
Hey, good. Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Hoi An, Vietnam. I'm staying here for a few weeks, get out of the city of Ho Chi Minh,
Oh,
take
very
it easy.
nice. Do you normally
Yeah.
live there or are you just a digital nomad?
I'm a digital nomad, but I spend most of my time in Vietnam and most time in Ho Chi Minh City, but I'm kind of taking a break from the city and spending a few weeks up here.
Interesting. So is that
Whereas,
just purely Amazon and business related that you're staying in Vietnam or you just discovered it like on its own?
no, I mean, I run a sourcing company, so I work with many suppliers to find factories. I've been doing China and Vietnam, but just with the trade war, pretty much since the beginning of the year, I've been focusing 100% on sourcing from Vietnam for suppliers.
Very interesting. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
let me share my screen. I was looking you up a little bit on LinkedIn and
hmm
I saw there
Oh
was
man, I
this
need to update that. I
this
haven't updated in
big,
years for the
yeah,
record.
you still have to accept my invite, see?
Oh, I didn't realize you sent me one. I honestly don't check LinkedIn that much.
LinkedIn is making a comeback, so
I know.
it's
I'm
like the
terrible
new
about
Facebook.
some of those social media.
It's
Pretty
pretty
much just
awesome.
Facebook.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you look at the LinkedIn feed, like there's a lot of things happening. Like if you never look at your Facebook feed, you look at everything about Amazon. It's like all kinds of business updates you can get. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. I know. I need to get on that next.
So I looked you up
Definitely
and I
like,
saw that you are already a founder of 5 years. That's a long time for a company.
correct.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's been
before
going
Gold
well.
Rush started, right? That's before
Yeah, it
we all got
is. Yeah,
digital.
that's correct. I've been in Vietnam since 2014. So been kind of doing, for the most part, I've been trying to do both China and Vietnam sourcing. But like I said, with the trade war, I've been pretty much 100% Vietnam for the last year.
So I wonder, just
I've
like
taken on the lead
I know
program.
I know nothing
Mhm.
about Vietnam or sourcing from Vietnam. Like, how does it compare? Is it more difficult or
Yeah,
easier?
absolutely more difficult. Yeah, I mean, with China, you have so many resources to find suppliers. I mean, Alibaba's the obvious one in trade shows, and they're much more proactive to get you. But here is the Wild West. There's not like a centralized exchange. So one of the first things we had to do was really build up our own database and actually hire Vietnamese speaking staff to go talk to factories. I tried when I first came here. I tried to do the same methods I did when I was sourcing in China. In China, everybody speaks English, or at least one person in the factory will speak English. Vietnam, not so much. So, yeah, first thing I realized I had to hire somebody that speaks Vietnamese, hire them, and kind of use that to get in touch with factories. And we also have used tons of more resources and research, word of mouth, getting names out. Like we were kind of finding a lot of unlisted factories, which is interesting. China, everybody's listed. So there's factories that just don't have literally any presence beyond a phone number.
Yeah, that's
So it's
right.
kind of much more difficult in that way. So it's definitely one of these things you have to be very proactive.
So
Sorry, perfect.
do you find it harder to convince people to source from Vietnam than China because everyone's used to existing rules and things and now you have to convince them one other new thing to do. So how do you do it?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you definitely do have to get them in the right mindset to source from Vietnam. People expect Vietnam to be pretty much the same as China, and it's not. It's kind of more difficult. A lot of times it's slower. There's more communication issues. You have to have your product fully designed. We haven't really found any, because China, a lot of times they'll have designers on staff and just have a broad idea and they'll work with you to develop it. But Vietnam, that doesn't exist. You just hand them drawings and they can make it, but you have to have those drawings set up.
Okay, so
Yeah.
but Vietnam in general, like for example, in Turkey, I tried to source from here because I now
Mm-hmm.
live in Turkey. But I
Oh, cool.
failed because the prices are pretty high and only some categories they are very good at, like textiles. But the rest of
Yeah.
the stuff is not that established and it's overpriced and exporting is very, very difficult. There are no set rules. Nobody knows about Amazon prep and stuff. So what about Vietnam?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few product categories that are better than China, I would say, or at least equal. And we don't have a lot of luck with wood and furniture in Vietnam, a lot of luck with textiles and garments, bags, like backpacks, handbags, leather goods, as well as metal goods, soft metal specifically, not high level engineering. And
Okay,
so
I
those
saw.
product categories have been pretty. well for us. So we kind of have to like focus when people get out in touch with us on kind of getting those categories and just kind of gently discouraging those then doing elsewhere.
I saw on your LinkedIn that it says kayaks and some other kind of swim thing, inflatable rafts, life jackets. So is this a category that you started
really need to update my LinkedIn. So before I started Cosmo, I started a company called Hartford Outdoor Sports Supply. It was a sourcing company, but we were focused on the outdoor industry. And that was actually when we were in China. So we had several contacts with factories and we're doing a lot of kayak and raft manufacturing.
Oh, I was assuming that Vietnam is making kayaks, No,
that's actually being done in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's some of my older projects.
So is it mostly leather goods then from Vietnam? That's the most things that you source?
Our most common is actually furniture. We do a lot of flat pack furniture. IKEA makes a lot of their furniture here, West Elm and a few other big brands. And so we've had a decent amount of wooden furniture projects and actually wooden goods in general. They have a really good high quality tropical wood.
Let's talk about that. I was curious about furniture and wood export, but I realized when I Googled a little bit that United States requires a lot of, it's difficult to import wood, right? Could you tell me a little bit like what regulations are and what do you need in terms of paperwork?
It depends on the quality, but you need REACH certification and you need to fumigate it. It's not as strict as need be, but we do work with third-party certification systems to get our product certified.
So those are Vietnam-based certification centers?
They're international certification centers with offices in Vietnam.
All right. And then
it's just basically product testing. You need to have fire compliance to make sure it doesn't burn, test certain varnishes and chemicals, make sure they're not cancer resistant, and there's some child safety regulations as well.
All right. So basically, there's a few certificates that Amazon needs, and then, is it checked upon import? Like where those certificates are used later?
It's mainly in imports. With support customs. Once it gets past customs, Amazon's is pretty much good to go. There's not that much extra. Amazon's more concerned about packaging again, right? Fulfillment center and everything's clear to go.
Okay, so I guess it's useful to work with the sourcing agent who knows what certificates are needed. Because when I Googled it, it was so complicated. There's some system in the United States that you can sign up for, importing the wood and things. It was difficult.
No, that was actually our first few projects in Vietnam were actually wood-based, and it was a little bit of a challenge. I was working with somebody who was already established in importing wood, so they kind of were helping me handle getting that certification. But since then, we've been kind of doing it for our clients.
Okay.
But the main thing is actually fumigation too. That's one thing you really got to do with wood. So when you actually import it, you got to basically put it in the container it's going to export it in and throw basically a giant fumigation bomb and kill any potential bacteria or bugs or worms or anything in there.
This sounds scary. Like, how does it work? Like, is it a chemical reaction? Or something?
It's quite a strong chemical, actually.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's not something you want to be around when they're doing it.
All right. So it's interesting. Then you have to think about that reaction when you are designing your product, I guess, because some color could peel off.
Absolutely. Oh, I know. For most varnishes, it should be fine. But there are a handful of tropical pests here in Vietnam that they don't want in the States, and they're quite strict on getting it, making sure that it doesn't end up in America or elsewhere.
So see, it's not that basic to just import. Like, for example, I sell dresses, so it's just as simple as that. You produce them and you ship them, There isn't any certifications that are required.
I mean, it's not outrageous. It's literally 2 or 3 forms, so it's never been an issue for us.
You make it sound so simple. When I was researching, it seemed like a job for the next 6 months, to figure it out.
This takes about a month. The main thing is we work with some flat pack furniture, and the assembly parts you actually got to get. There's extra stuff certification that we had to do, but because you have to get it certified and assembled and make sure the pieces that used at certain things. But outrageous.
Let me look it up a little bit. So you say Vietnam sourcing, for example.
Yeah, it should be.
Just curious.
This might be me now. Number 1 or 2.
Just want to see. It's like, so there's basically the factories are factories everywhere, right
there.
Vietnam manufacturing. I'm just curious if a factory is a factory everywhere, Is it just the same thing, or is it actually something that is unique and different about Vietnam having a factory, or is it pretty
Okay.
similar?
Yeah, most of the factories. Are you looking at the map?
No, I'm just looking at the pictures. I'm a very visual person. I want to feel it, you know. I want to see
Yeah,
what's
I
the.
mean, most of the factories are concentrated around Ho Chi Minh City. I would say about 40 to 50% of the factories in the country.
Okay. So in terms of rules and requirements and the employee, I don't know, things like it's all about the same, right? Because you said that Vietnam is nothing like China in terms of sourcing. So
Yeah, correct.
what exactly do you mean? Like, how is it
I
different?
mean, it's not nothing like China. It's quite similar, and I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's probably the most similar non-China country to China outside. I think maybe Taiwan, but it's just in terms of the actual manufacturing is similar, but the actual sourcing and finding factories is different, and that you actually need to be more proactive in finding potential factories.
Okay, so how I would look for it? I would go to
Yeah,
Alibaba.com and I would probably not and I would probably filter by, if I see
country. Yeah.
furniture, filter by country. And so would I find most of Vietnam manufacturers this way?
No, not at all. Especially
No?
not Alibaba. Um, so yeah, we use a different wide amount of resources to find our factories, including customs data like Panjiva and Yellow Pages. So we actually look them up in the phone book and get factories. With Alibaba, especially with Vietnam suppliers, a lot of them will set up a page and then never respond. Like actually, you can kind of message a few just to see what happens. They're also not going to answer instantly, but the response
Interesting.
rate was much lower with Vietnamese suppliers and Chinese suppliers. When talking to Chinese suppliers, I would say our response rate was maybe 25 to 40% would actually respond from our large list. And with Vietnam, we get about 10 to 25%, I would say, 15 to 25%.
All right. Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
prefer to working with sourcing agent even in China, just to
Mm-hmm.
remove that friction, between I sent an email, wait for 24 hours, and then they misunderstood it, wait 24 hours. Then again, I just don't
I
want to
know.
deal with that anymore. So I hired a sourcing agent in China to deal with everything. Is that the main reason that
Yeah.
people hire you as well?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, with us, we can actually get the contacts of the factories and we work in multiple steps. So, like you said, create a large master list of suppliers, contact them. So, we'll contact 20, 30, 40 and our staff will organize basically 40 different contacts of 40 different factories. And from there, kind of narrow that down to the suitable ones and get the quotes and compile the quotes. But yeah, a lot of people just don't want to deal with talking to 40 different factories over a period of 1 or 2 weeks with their product, especially if it's just one product. Once you have multiple products, it's going to be way more, and then you don't know how to interact exactly with Vietnamese factories. In addition, like as stated before, many Vietnamese factories don't speak English, so it helps that our staff is Vietnamese speaking. So
Do
when
you,
we actually talk our,
do you
so
speak
what?
Vietnamese?
No, I don't.
No.
No, I tried learning Chinese. I spent like 2 years learning, and I only got past conversational. I have zero ability to learn language. I tried Spanish. I tried Chinese. When I got to Vietnam, I'm like, I'm done. Mentally fried on that.
I guess Chinese and Vietnamese are the hard ones to pick.
And Vietnamese has the tones are quite different, and it's like 6 tones. It's very fast. Yeah, 12 vowels.
Wow, it's
I can
crazy.
say anything. I can pronounce most of food items, which for me is the important part.
See, you're kind of learning by immersion.
I know, I know.
So tell me, we want some stories. Tell me, so how was the first Vietnam factory that you approached? Like, what was the experience like?
It was, yeah, it was a little bit different. I guess the very first would have been a wood factory about 5 years ago. I was kind of shocked at how small it was, to be honest. I've seen big factories and small factories in Vietnam, but this particular one, we were making just wooden reels. So the giant spools that wires bundled on, we were working a client to get several thousand units. And it was, I'm trying to think of a good size, maybe the size of a tennis court. And like all the machinery was built, and then they're just stacking everything between. It was quite the maze. Yeah, that would have been. So it was pretty small, compact, but efficient operation. I visited other ones. I ended up going to a different supplier for that one, but yeah, they're hit and miss. And a lot of factories, I mean, are brand new. Vietnam's getting a lot of foreign investment, so a lot of brand new factories are getting built right now. A lot of them, especially in the last year. In the 5 years I've been here, the last 6 months, there's been more construction in the last 6 months than the 5 previous years.
So, so that first one you went to, and how did it go? Like you knock on the door, and did you have an appointment, or did you talk to the manager?
I had an appointment. I almost always try to make an appointment. There's been a handful of times where I find a factory, I'm like, it meets it. I reach out to them, couldn't get in touch. And eventually you just look out, and there's usually an area sometimes, and this is early days, so I don't do it so much anymore, but you realize there's like 3 or 4 factories that make similar products within region. So I had my motorcycle, I actually get on my motorcycle and drive through that region. It could be like only 30 minutes, an hour outside of the city, and just pretty much go up, casually introduce myself, and then awkwardly talk to them. But since then I've hired staff, and I bring my staff along, and we have appointments and get everything organized. So it's much more formal.
Because
but at that time, I was
don't speak Vietnamese, then you have to bring a translator on the motorcycle.
Yeah, I know. After the very beginning, I did that. Like those are literally the first few. After this, probably 3rd or 4th, I was bringing a translator along.
Very interesting. And then what you do? Yeah. So you come, you introduce yourself, you say, "Can I speak to the manager?"
More or less.
And then what? Like, how do you talk? Do you sort of play as if you're gonna buy a lot from them, or you downplay yourself? Like, what's the strategy there?
I for the most part, I'm pretty honest that I work on behalf of somebody. I know a lot of people would pretend to be a procurement manager or some other capacity. I've never liked that method. I know, like with our staff, when we communicate, we'll often kind of low downplay that we're a sourcing agent, because a lot of Vietnamese factories are skeptical of sourcing agents, but for the most part, if I'm visiting, they already know who I am and what our relationship will be. But with us, we work on a slightly different methodology, so we're more transparent. So ultimately, the factory will be getting in touch with the end client. Because we actually charge a flat rate instead of commission for most of our projects.
So it's more like a referral system that you have, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but the factories, if they don't have an English speaker, how do they communicate then with the customer directly?
We have staff that can communicate on their behalf, so we can facilitate that.
All right. Okay, yeah, I was just wondering because, if I ever go to Vietnam, I would be pretty, scared to go and approach the knock on doors and just... No.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing that at first just because I was really trying to figure out the country. Because, like I said, I've been in China. I had my mentor in China. He gave me all the ropes, and he come to Vietnam, and it's just like, oh, it does not work like that. So at the very beginning, I really had to figure out on my own. It's kind of the Wild West. But I don't know, after a while, you get the knack of it. But I mean, with us, we actually, formally introduce ourselves to factories, and we'll arrange trips and appointments, and spend weeks getting the appointment set up. So is it not like that anymore?
Yeah. What about the culture? I feel like the culture would not be very, how to say, for example, us Eastern Europeans we are rude, straightforward, very go, and very mean people, yeah? And I feel like, Vietnamese probably are more like reserved, shy, and like, they're not going to tell you in your face, oh, yeah, like this. So how is it really there out there?
I mean, for the most part, okay, there's a little bit of difference between southern and northern Vietnam. So most of our business is in southern Vietnam, which is more relaxed. So they're pretty relaxed, but it's less formal than China, I would say. Like I actually show up dressed in shorts, shirts, and I wear long pants, but they're more chill. I would say more relaxed. It's less formal relationship. They're pretty blunt actually in terms of what they can and can't do, which I appreciate. Like you'll get yes men every now and then, but they're pretty blunt. Like, yeah, we can do this, we can't do that. So I kind of appreciate it.
Okay. Wait a minute. Yeah. Are you saying in China they do expect you to wear a suit? Because I'm going to China.
Not a suit, but just dress up. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on the factory. I usually try to wear khakis and a button down in China. Okay. And here I either wear jeans and a short sleeve button down or a polo.
That's
I would say it's
interesting.
dressed down
Interesting
a slight
piece of
bit.
information. Because I'm gonna be going to Hong Kong and Guangzhou for the Canton Fair.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, good to know that I need to not go in my jeans.
You can. I mean, they won't judge you. If you're there to make a sell, they're going to make a sell. They're not going to like turn you down over your dress code.
Right.
Honestly, at the end of the day, the universal language is money.
That's
And if
true.
they can make a sell, they're happy to see you no matter what.
I talked to Amy Weiss, who's the founder of the Canton Fair Experience, and she told me that in China, kings talk to kings. That stuck in my mind. Kings talk to kings. That means
Yeah.
if you're talking to like a sales rep, then you should be a sales rep. It's sort of like, if you want to get any deal done, if you're a manager, you should talk to the manager. So is it the same in
Yeah.
Vietnam?
I would say more or less. I mean, I am a CEO of the company, but yeah, I would say it's quite similar. I mean, we talk to managers all the time, even with our sales staff, but it depends on the scale of the factory, to be honest. Like, we work with a lot of smaller suppliers here that are maybe 200 workers. And so with that scale, you pretty much talk to the manager. But with our larger factories in the few thousand, you probably do talk to the salesperson more than a manager. Like, we have some huge factories that I've never even come close to meeting the CEO. But these huge factories are in the ballpark of like 10,000 workers.
Wow. Okay. So the whole process of me hiring a sourcing agent like you. So how does it work? Am I completely hands off and I just tell you I need 5,000 of these chairs and you'll get it done?
It depends on the client. Yeah, we have a lot of clients who are pretty hands off, just want me to handle everything. And so we'll just do everything for them. We'll find them a factory, we'll arrange the quotes, we'll arrange samples, and even oversee manufacturing and production. Other clients just want us to help do introductions to the factories, and from there they'll be hands-on. We've had a handful of clients that are pretty large, and they'll have a large list of factories they've already found, and we just kind of supplement that list with them and kind of help to kind of get RFQs. So we're pretty flexible in how we work with clients. But yeah, we have the capabilities to do everything overseas if need be.
All right. Okay. So, yeah, I was sort of looking to compare, how it's going to be if I do it myself or if I hire someone. So it is possible to do it myself, you're saying, but almost impossible without speaking Vietnamese. Is that it?
You will get response. I would say about half the factories have English-speaking salesperson, and those will be the larger ones. So it depends on the nature of your project and product and kind of the scale you're looking for, if you'll be able to get in touch with it. But just with us, the response rate that we get from factories is about half if we just speak English.
Okay, and you're saying most of them are not online anywhere. It's just like my competitors.
I would say most are online. I would say 70% are online, but there are a handful of even larger factories that we work with that aren't listed more than a phone number. It's a few of them, but it's just is what it is. But they'll often interact with trade shows and a few other sales networks and get their sales that way, but they don't actually have, I guess, a public, like a internet-based online presence.
I really like that style of having just little presence, because that's the factors that I want to work with in China also, so that my competitor can't look them up, and they don't speak any English to even talk to any competitor. So my sourcing agent does the work, and it's always a family establishment. So basically the wife, the husband, the brother, the cousin all work in the same house,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we have one factory that we work with for some wooden furniture. They have a handful, I don't say two larger American clients, major retailers that do a few thousand units a month. And so they actually work with large American retailers, but they have no presence online. So one of my sourcing, my staff actually found them. They have contacts with them. And so they found them, got in touch, and I was trying to verify them, look them up. I was like, they don't have a website. They can't do this. And they're like, no, I talked to them. I visited the factory. She visited on another project. She told me, yeah, she saw them. She knows from friend to friend that they exist. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. So we ended up visiting the factory, and it's pretty legitimate operation. It's just completely no presence. And yeah, when I went there, I talked to the son of the owner. He was the head engineer, salesperson, jack of all trades. But it was pretty informal. We kind of just went there, but he was super sharp. I was actually really impressed with that guy because we were just doing quotes for the furniture, and we kept changing, like asking, "Oh, can we do this change?" And he would instantly do the price in his head and give us an actual quote, like instantly. Like he knew exactly what it was. He just knew like how much the labor cost and cost of materials was, and just added a set percentage on top of that. And could do all the math in his head in the meeting. I was quite impressed.
That's
But that factory could do everything too. They did full wood processing, took the raw logs, cut them up, had one warehouse that just did the processing, turned them to plywood and particle board, solid wood, etc. Then they had 4 different factories where they were warehouses, unit production lines that they could actually do the finished furniture, and then another whole production line dedicated just to packaging. So they're actually doing pretty large scale flat packaging furniture and blow it straight onto a container. So you get everything processed straight from the wood into the box, final retail box. So it's a legitimate operation. It's just zero presence on their website, zero presence whatsoever.
Okay, so I'll give you example. Let me share my screen and I'll show you something.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So it's an exact question about the furniture that I had this idea. So I basically have an Airbnb that I run in Turkey, and there was this piece of furniture that
right now.
yeah, we custom designed. Really? Oh, cool.
Oh yeah.
We designed this custom furniture, and I have thought, I could have something like this as an Amazon product,
Yeah.
And in Turkey, it was a little bit too expensive for my liking, And so, how would this go about, like that size of the thing? You can't really send me a sample, right? So, how would you do that?
I mean, would you get it shipped as is, or would you actually try and pack it flat?
Probably flat, because saving on storage fees.
Yeah, exactly. Because just shipping that unassembled would be quite expensive. It's a nice piece.
And then in the United States, it was like $600 as a price, right? So I have to fit in that nicely, and shipping included.
Yeah, we have kind of worked with a similar product that's more or less. Is that a full bed or a baby crib? It looks kind of small.
No, it's a full bed actually. It just looks small. Yeah, but it is a full bed. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and there's more pictures of that room. Yeah, here it is. So there's 2, like one smaller one and one bigger one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, for that, one thing you do need to do with furniture is get the shop drawings, the actual drawings of how to make it. Basically, take every piece and then list out every more or less screw that you would need. And from there, they would just kind of field it to our network of factories and get a quotes. That would be pretty. It could be done in Vietnam, but I assume that's wood, all wood, or is it?
It's all wood, just painted white. Yeah, it's just basically it was handmade, to my drawings. But so I was thinking I could mass produce this, because nobody makes Arabic.
Yeah, because with the decorative parts, you can get a CNC machine to actually kind of cut those out. It's more complex, but yeah, it's actually pretty cool because a lot of the factories work with have these giant CNC machines. So you just basically plug it in, there's a giant drill that cuts it exactly to shape. We have one product that's made exclusively from a single piece of giant plywood, like an 4x8 piece, and then they can cut 2 of those out, and then the whole product's done just like that. But you can do that with the top parts. The bottom parts are kind of more, is my mouse on screen? Are more or less just standard wood, so that would be pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's definitely could be done.
Okay, so I guess, what am I looking at? Like, how do I check the sample? Are you going to check the sample for me and just send me a video report, or how does it gonna work?
Yeah, we can do that. We have the ability to go visit factories and do reports for people. So yeah, well, for this one, you pretty much, I guess you wouldn't want the sample shipped. So in that case, we would just probably visit a factory and take photos of it for you on your behalf.
That's the hard thing. Like, how do I even know that it's quality products, right? So how do I trust it from the picture,
Yeah, we can jump on it and see if we can check it up a little bit.
All right. So I guess we could take those apart and then stuff. So would you have an estimate? Like, what am I looking at for the cost?
I couldn't tell you without actually getting the details.
But it won't be like $600 for a piece?
No, $600. It really depends on how much wood is used, but
It was like the
I personally couldn't.
cheapest alternatives, you know.
Yeah, if you just do like MDF, which is basically just particle board,
Right.
it'd be, again, I can't give you a quote, but it will be cheaper.
All right. Yeah, that was the idea because he quoted me about $600 here in Turkey. And I thought that's crazy
Wow.
expensive when, you know, if you look at Amazon.com and those beds are like, you know, it's called Montessori bed. It's like for the little kid
Yeah.
who's 2 years old to climb himself and be
Mm-hmm.
like, no. And the prices were really, really, I don't know how to say, hard to compete with, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because look,
I see. Oh, yeah.
$159, you know, they're pretty cheap, but just the idea was to make something Arabic style because, you know, it's
Yeah.
more like a story in the room.
Because, yeah, all those look fairly basic. There's no real heavy decorative elements. Like you have the siding, you have the top parts. So, yeah,
Right.
you're definitely more complex than that. I mean, that one's, like you said, is almost $600, and that's more in line with what you're doing.
Yeah, so I definitely would charge about $600. Yeah, just was
Yeah.
trying to make, because from Turkey it wouldn't have worked for me. And then I got scared of the, you know, those import-export paperwork for the wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's definitely doable. Yeah, I mean, if you really want, we can reach out and get a quote.
So what's
Yeah,
the
the one
like
thing too is
minimum?
we'd have to get.
What's the minimum order quantity on that kind of thing?
Generally, it's just a container, so however many can fit in a container. Just with shipping from Vietnam, it's fairly difficult to do smaller shipping.
I wonder
Like,
how many of
cause
them go in the container.
let's see, we're doing 2,000. I would say for that size, probably about 500, a few
Hmm.
hundred.
That's pretty scary to order that high. Could I order just 10?
Yeah, it's hard to do small orders here with a lot of factories. We
You can combine
sometimes,
me with someone else in the same container?
I mean, well, if you're getting shipped to Turkey, because most of
No,
our clients are in America,
no, to United
or would this be
States.
shipped to you? Okay, I mean, we could conceivably do that then. I mean, yeah, it's definitely possible to be combined with another client.
Like just 10 units because I need to know if it's even gonna sell. And 10 units, you
Yeah,
know, is a lot. Like $6,000
especially
I'll
for a
get revenue.
$600 project.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely something we can look into.
Okay,
I
just
see it
it has
being
to make
done.
sense cost-wise for me, you know, because shipping will end up
Yeah,
to be expensive as well.
yeah. With that small a scale, a lot of it will have to be handmade versus machined at the larger scale.
And that's what makes it more expensive? Handmade?
It would. We've done smaller runs with some fairly high-end stuff. Like we did a tentacle backpack that retails for several $100s. But with that one, we basically had to do it by hand because even though we went with a qualified factory that does large volume orders, they more or less had to use their sample room instead, or sample line instead of their full production line to get those products made. So if you do 10, it will basically just be 10 samples more than
Okay.
10 production.
What about later I'll order another 10 and then again and
Yeah,
then
if you do later, they can probably just have a whole assembly line set up, but it's hard to set up a whole assembly line with just 10 products.
hmm.
But it's hard to say unless you actually do it.
Yeah, that's the risk of, you know, starting up any new product. You have to take it carefully, otherwise all the budget will be
Yeah.
gone. And the
Oh, I
storage
know.
fees ramp up fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
All
Especially
right.
project
So,
size.
thank you very much for answering my questions. So, where can people find you and how can they connect with you for those who are watching?
Yeah. Our website is cosmosourcing.com. We have Facebook, just Cosmo Sourcing, and Instagram, also Cosmo Sourcing. They can reach out to me by email at Kennemer, or jim@cosmosourcing.com. Yeah, so go cosmosourcing.com. There's my website. I would say LinkedIn, but like I said, I haven't checked my LinkedIn in a bit.
Yeah, it says that you source kayaks.
I know. I have source kayaks and I still have those contacts, so it still
It's
works.
always, oh, there is something to
I
do.
keep well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I did stand up paddleboards for a bit too.
Wow, cool. That's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
that's actually one of the furniture factories in the plan that I worked with. I probably have a really good relationship with. We've done several projects with them. And those are
Um,
jeans, and that's just over in Charlotteport.
oh, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, if they want to reach out, just send me an email. Like, email is usually best for me, or Facebook Messenger.
okay, sounds good. Well, thank you very much, and talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
All
Okay.
right, great. It was a pleasure.